Sheffield, home to over 500,000 people. But who will stop tonight? A new series from CK Goldiing. The Bench, out now.
Firstly, thank you for joining us, CK.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
It's fantastic to have you. So we're originally planning to have this interview on a bench, but given the weather, that's not possible.
No.
So we're joined here in our lovely little studio. So you've just released your new film, The Bench.
I prefer it to outside, by the way, but...
Fair enough, fair enough. It's probably got better sound.
Yes,
So
correct.
you've just released your new film, The Bench. 7 nights, 7 different conversations, interviewing people of Sheffield. How did you find filming it?
My new series, rather than a film, it's a new 7-part series, correct, and I found it a joy. I also found it a revelation, an insight. And when I say revelation, I don't mean like it's a groundbreaking series. I mean, I learned so much about the process of just trusting what you consider to be one of your biggest strengths, and that's something that I had to do with this, because the idea is quite loose and it's open to a lot of issues happening, like nobody walks past for ages, which by the way happened, or the wrong kind of person walks past, or nobody gives a toss. I don't know, there were just so many potentials for it to go wrong, but I just thought, you know what, every time you leave with an idea, the universe conspires to bring you something beautiful, and I just trusted that from the episode 1, and over the course of 7 episodes I'm just delighted by how it developed.
What was it that inspired you, the idea?
Well, about 4 days before I had the idea that evening, there was a video I put out where I just had this encounter with 2 homeless guys on West Street, and they just said, can you buy me some breakfast? And then I did buy them some breakfast. We had a little chat, and that video did better than I thought it was going to do. So it was at the forefront of my mind for a week. And I sometimes go for late night walks. I was walking at night, and it just hit me, wow, mate, what is it with you? Why are all your videos always made in the daytime? Because you know, a lot of mine is based on my interaction with people I've never met, as in the homeless guy. So I just thought, I wonder if the stakes would be higher if you dived into your obsession with interacting with people, but did it at night, dark. When there's that, it's just a bit edgy, it's a bit weird, and that whole idea fascinated me. So I thought, the minute I had the idea, I thought, well, why don't you just do it now then? You know, don't stew over it, because I'm a massive overthinker. I don't know how much of my stuff you're aware of, but I have the risk sometimes of overthinking everything. So the minute the idea came to me, I thought, just do it now, mate. Just sit down, see if anyone's going to engage.
And you had some real profound conversations with people. The one that sticks out to me is episode 7 with Jason, his mother. That was a really profound conversation. Were you surprised that people were willing to open up that much to you?
Jason and his mother was episode 4.
Sorry, episode 4.
No, not at all. Not at all. Thank you, mate, because that episode really, it's the kind of interaction that I could have only hoped of, and I kind of expected, but not in this series. And I remember when I first had the idea, I thought, I bet if you do this long enough, someone will share something really personal about their life. And weirdly enough, I remember thinking to myself, I bet at some point, probably by series 3, you're going to meet someone whose mum, because you know, mums are a very personal thing. You're going to meet someone whose mum is experiencing some difficulties in life, and that difficulty will probably be health related. So I kind of had it in my head, thinking, all right, then that'll happen in a few months. So I wasn't expecting it by episode 4 of series 1. Are you and your mum close?
Yeah. So I'm youngest out of...
Sorry, buddy, I missed that.
I'm youngest out of 4
Okay.
sons, so yeah. I'm still baby, she said. In the 40s, so.
Yeah. So are your siblings helping as well, chipping in with the care?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sister and sister-in-law. Their daughter-in-law go up every day to see her. I go over when I can. So it's not easy.
No. I bet. So you're right, mate. Thank you for noting that. That was quite a thing to happen.
What do you feel you learned about society throughout the conversations you had? Because you just talked about fame, money, fate. What did you learn about where we are as a society?
Wow, what did I learn about where we are? Well, speaking about the episode you just referenced, Fame, which was episode 5, that really surprised me, because I've always felt like I'm a man on an island, as in, I generally think fame is quite a repugnant, repellent concept. Like, I love creating content, and I love creating content that people engage with and watch and view, but that doesn't mean I want fame. That just means I like creating content and telling stories. And people sometimes struggle divorcing the two. They often hear me say I don't want fame. I think, well, why put yourself out there? I'm putting my content out there, and if you think about it, I'm actually usually secondary to the people and to their stories. So I was really surprised when I set out to ask people if you could. So the question for that episode was, if you could take a pill and make you the most famous person in the world, would you take it? I expected everybody, especially students, to say, God, yeah. Not a single person was having it.
Yeah.
I was really surprised.
I consider taking it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, because you think being the most famous person in the world comes with a lot of perks. Comes with a lot of money, everyone knows who you are. There's a lot of downsides, but I don't think people think of the perks.
Do you think everybody knowing you is an upside then? Is a perk, as you would call it?
Maybe it's because I don't have the novelty of it. Maybe it would wear off after a while. You try to go to Tesco's to get a meal deal, people will swarm on you. Like, I don't know, who's the most famous person? Let's just say the Queen, for example. Then, if she walked into Tesco's, she couldn't do it. Just as an example of the person the most famous in the world. I don't know, maybe it
I
wouldn't have its downsides.
I actually think the Queen could walk into Tesco, because everyone will look and think, is that the Queen? No, she's in Tesco. It's not the Queen.
Yeah, that's true.
She could do it.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. I love the way you went, I'd consider it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd consider it. Could I do it temporarily? I'd consider doing it temporarily,
Sure.
maybe for a week. Then I'd definitely do it, because then you can have a taste of it and appreciate your own life more afterwards. So maybe it'd be something I'd do temporarily.
And I was very mindful of that caveat, which is why the question was, if you remember, if you could take a pill that would make you the most famous person for the rest of your life. Because I didn't want people looking for caveats and saying, well, I'll take it for a week. No.
I'm being the difficult one.
A little bit.
Now, obviously, when you were filming the series, you did have sort of long spans where people didn't want to talk. How did you sort of get yourself to keep going when you're trying to talk to people and they're just flat out ignoring you?
Oh, no, he's crossed the road instead. That was the person I was going to ask, but he's decided to cross the road. But there's someone walking over this way. We'll try this. Hey, how are you? Do you believe in fate? He does not care for fate. Well, actually, to be fair, David, it was less a case of people not wanting to talk. That happened occasionally, but it was more a case of just nobody was about. Because I was filming so late, often 11 PM onwards, that there was just no one around. So there were swathes of time when I was just sat there. And I remember thinking to myself, like, when it comes to the edit of this piece, I don't want to pander to you know how content nowadays has to be really choppy and fast and something happening all the time. I would normally pander to that, to be fair, but in the bench I felt if I did that it would undermine the fact that sometimes I was sat there forever, so I was quite happy for it to breathe and just leave it and sometimes just sit there. But I also knew that, well, you can't just not do something, you can't just do nothing, so you have to do something. So that's why for the first thing I've ever done, that was the most introspective piece of content I've ever made. I was sharing my own thoughts, views, opinions, hopes, dreams, and I've never really done that in any great sense. But I knew that to keep people engaged, that had to be there. And based on the feedback that I've got, I'm just so happy that I did that, because people said, CK, you've never shared that much into you, and I really enjoyed that, so I've been grateful for that.
You mentioned possible future series. Is it something you consider doing again, maybe somewhere else, a different bench?
Wonderful question, and yes, I intentionally made every single episode of this series on the same bench because I know how formats work and viewers like familiarity. So if it was a different bench every episode, you'd never really feel at home with it. That makes sense. But I was also aware of, on a series basis, it would probably evolve into other locations for sure. I'll probably not use that one again because it was very skewed towards students, the people that just, because it's just a student area. So it'd be nice to move it somewhere where there's a different demographic, and travelling bench every series, mate.
Do you think if you were to do it in a different city, do you think the kind of reactions you would be different? So we talked before we were out on camera about the north-south divide. If you were to say to do it on a bench in Devon, do you think you'd get a different reaction?
I don't know what Devon humans are like. What are Devon humans like?
I don't know. I'm not gonna criticise the lovely people of Devon.
Should we use London then?
Should we use London?
Because that's commonly used. And it's a great. And when we were walking off camera and you were talking about the north-south divide, I didn't want to chip in, but usually when people start talking to me about the north-south divide, I usually jump down their throat and say it's a load of bollocks. Because I genuinely think it is, actually. And people often think I'm the most bizarre person for thinking that. They're like, well, there clearly is a north-south divide. Have you ever spoken to a human? And I don't know. I'm not buying it. I think and I'm gonna go on a bit of a rant here, but you're not familiar with why I think this way, so I'm going to tell you. Right. If you walk down a London street, High Street, and you walk down a Sheffield High Street, there's a distinct difference in what you'll encounter in people's mood, tone, speed. So in Sheffield, people be a bit more casual, and they'll probably look up a bit more. In London, it's like people are in what I call, I've forgotten what I call it now, but they're just in the zone of just getting from A to B. However, if you engage either one of those people and ask them a question, ask them for help with something, ask them where something is, there'll be no difference. Like if you ask someone where is X in London, you ask someone where it's X in Sheffield, both of those humans will stop, give you time, answer your question and try to help you out. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So what I think people do is, I think people confuse just the mood and the tone with the humans behind the mood and the tone. And as someone that's lived in London for a period of time and done some projects, I just know it to be the case. Like I've stopped people and asked them for help because I didn't know anything about London, and no one was ever rude, short, or curt or anything. So, but I do get the difference between how people, you know. But so to answer your question, I genuinely don't think if I did the bench in London there'd be a huge difference, because it'd involve me stopping a human, asking them a question. And anyway, we'll see when I do it.
Fair enough.
We'll see.
One of the episodes I also really liked was about fate, and I'm really interested to hear more on your thinkings of fate, because I think we differ on what we believe. So, where's your current mind on the state of, is there such thing as fate?
Can we find out where your current mind is first? Because I'm fascinated.
Well, I think fate is something that humans construct to understand their lives. I don't think there is a greater, and I'm not getting religious, like greater being controlling on what happens. But if you believe something strong enough that it's going to happen, you're going to do and take actions to make that happen. So if you believe that it's fate that you're going to become a millionaire, then you're going to work hard enough and do what it takes to become a millionaire.
Well, it's not about believing in fate, just believe you're going to become a millionaire, right? Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
If you believe you're going to become a millionaire,
yeah. And then you could look back and say, well, it was fate.
Understood.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas you would say it's not fate, it's more a case if you just believed it, so you took all the necessary actions and it manifested eventually. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Well, what's your interpretation of my interpretation of fate? 'Cause that's pretty much what I think.
Is it?
It's like,
I've misunderstood you, CK. I have to go,
what did you think I thought?
I didn't think you were a fan of fate.
No, I'm a big fan of fate.
You're a big fan of fate?
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of fate.
Well, then we both agree.
No, like, I mean, you know, in the context of episode 2, which was fate, like I left the house not knowing what I was going to talk about. I didn't have any subject matter. So by virtue of that, I wasn't going to film that night, right? But I thought, this is you being a classic overthinker. Just leave the house and put your shoes on, put your coat on, leave, and between here and the bench, you'll figure something out. Because you always do, you'll just think of something, because you think that much, it's impossible for something not to land in your lap. So as I was walking to the bench, trusting the system, it landed on me. It thought, oh, so you are actually just believing in fate, something's going to come to you, so that'll be a topic for the day. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of different. That's a bit of a branch off your version of fate, but yeah, I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
I'm also interested to hear your thoughts on filmmaking, because obviously it's something that's very intrinsic to you.
Yeah.
What do you think is the benefit of filmmaking to us as a society?
Oh my God.
That's a deep question, CK.
It really is. I mean, where would I even start with that? I don't know. And do you know what the biggest irony of all of this is, David, is that if you watch this video back, when you said to me, CK, let's talk about filmmaking, you'll notice I did this little thing. I kind of just did uncomfortable, weird laugh. And the reason I did that is because I actually don't necessarily consider myself as a filmmaker per se. Now, just to give that context, the fact that I sell film isn't like through design, it's just like a necessity. Who else is going to do it? Like, you know what I mean? I just have these ideas, like who else is going to do it? I don't have that many filmmaker friends, so I just have to naturally do it myself. Then I just have to learn how to put it together. The business of filmmaking isn't like necessarily in my heart, in my blood, isn't like what I've put on earth to do. I was kind of put on earth just to tell stories and communicate and engage and just create content that people engage with. The fact is through film just happens to be, it's just the most appropriate mode. So in order to answer your question, I can't think of any other way of communicating what I like communicating than through video, and that is just human relationships, human behaviour, psychology. All those three things fascinate me, and I can't think of a better way of communicating them than in video form. In terms of the broader society, mate, I mean, I might be out of my depth. I might be out of my depth if I start talking about it from a broader society point of view. I don't know if you picked anything up from a society point of view on the bench. I don't know if it.
Well, I think it shows. I think if you want to talk about it from a mental health point of view, bring it back to Jason.
Wow.
The fact that he was pretty quickly into talking to you, willing to talk about his mother's Alzheimer's. I don't think if my mother had Alzheimer's, I don't think I would talk about it to a complete stranger with a camera in their hand that quickly. And maybe that's just me being hard up, but people talk a lot about men's mental health. For him to be, just out playing Pokemon and to come out and sit with you so quickly, I think that shows that we are in a good place in society. So I think
Good place from a trusting, just human engagement point of view.
Yeah, because people often say, and this is a London stereotype, but I think it stereotypes to the whole of the country that people don't like talking to strangers because there's not that level of trust there. And there's an element of human psychology to that. But the fact that Jason was so quick to talk to you, and initially maybe he was a little bit hesitant to stop because it's just a random person asking him a question, but then he really had a deep conversation with you. He was willing to give up his time before he went off to go and get some sleep. I think that shows that we're in a good place in society, and I think the film does have a commentary of that.
That's interesting. And you know what? I'm delighted that that's what you took from it, because a lot of the interviews I've had since its release, people have asked, what do you hope people will take away from it? And my answer is probably cripplingly depressing in its simplicity. It's like, my answer is always the same: take from it whatever you like. And that's what I love about it. I love the fact that people take different things away from it. You know what? I just wanted to create it. I just wanted to actually experiment, and it's taught me a lot. I'm not here to be prescriptive and say, take this, take that, take from it what you like. Because I know what I took from it. And one of the things, like episode 2, the couple, there was the young couple, and
Ed and Rose, yeah.
Jesus. Did you write the series?
Don't think so.
Ed and Rose. I don't want to beg you, but I will if I have to. Come on. She's literally dragging him. Like, in a million years, that's one of my favourite things of the series, and no one's referenced it, so I think I'm a bit weird for loving it so much, but the fact that she was dragging him over, and he was like...
didn't want to talk.
I'd have never predicted that in a million years. I'd have thought, and I've said this openly, like, I don't know if it makes me sexist to say, I'd have probably assumed that the young, slight, petite woman wouldn't have been up for it, and the big... Because she'd have maybe felt potentially threatened, I don't know. But she was like, bang up for it, and that's easily in my top 3 highlights of the series. I love it. So it taught me not to be so assumptive, I guess.
I think it showed as well that society maybe isn't as greedy as we think. Obviously there was the money episode where it sort of split. Some people did want the money, some didn't. But then obviously the fact, would you take a pill that makes you the most famous person in the world? No one was up for that. But then, as you assumed, you'd think everyone would say yes as a student demographic.
Correct.
People would be up for it. So maybe society's sort of stereotypes actually aren't the case when you meet the real people.
Exactly. Unquestionably, you've kind of just answered your own question for me, so thanks. Use that bit instead of what I actually said, because that's exactly right, and that's what I love about it, the fact that so many of my assumptions were just countered and turned out to be garbage. And I love the fact that students are like, God no, and then the jogger, Alice, and you're like, oh, would you like, not in a million years, I love that, but she wasn't having it. You couldn't do anything if everybody knew you. I can't believe not a single person was up for fame. Even the drunk guy near the park's like, don't want to be famous.
Probably not at that point in time he didn't.
Correct.
How do you feel about the reaction to the series? Are you happy with it?
Mate, this is the first time I've been able to say this in an interview, is that there's a video on my YouTube channel. If you go to my YouTube channel, I don't think many people are aware of this, there's a video on my YouTube channel before I released it, saying, I've just done this thing, I'm so proud of it, I don't know if anybody's going to like it, but as artists I think we have to stand by our art and just say, I don't care, you don't have to like it. But then the closer it got to the release, and the more I realised, oh actually this could be a disaster, because very little happens for so long, and then I started to panic a little bit. And that's very unlike me. I've never had that feeling, because normally with other things I've done I can tell why it's going to work. 61 Hugs, I could tell why it would work, because there's just not much space for nothing happening. It's just something happening all the time, and those some things are just tap into our humanity. But with the bench, there's just so much when nothing's happening, and I was panicking. So the fact it's been embraced has just been an utter delight to me. I can't even tell you, honestly, especially off the back of something like 61 that did so well. I thought, oh dear, this could take you a few steps back. So the fact that you've invited me to chat today and people have engaged with it has been an utter joy.
That's great to hear.
So
and
thanks.
I think my final question would be, is quite a simple one. What's next for you? What are your plans for the future?
Well, given the way people have embraced with the bench, it's the next thing I was supposed to do was something called The Train, which is filmed in London, and I even mentioned The Train during interviews for 61 Hugs. It was going to be my next thing, but then the bench just fell out of the sky. Are you familiar with Noel Gallagher?
Yes.
Do you like his stuff? I don't know if you...
I'm not a huge fan of him, no. Sorry, Noel.
It's fine. He's not watching. I promise you, he's not watching.
Probably not.
He always says this thing in interviews that I really relate to, and he says to me, like, songs just drop out of the sky for him. Like his biggest hits have just dropped out of the sky, and he wrote them in seconds. the bench, literally, that just happened. I'm not comparing myself to Noel Gallagher, but in terms of what we do best, that's how my ideas all manifest, just drop out of the sky. So the bench was never meant to be a thing. The next thing I was going to do was the train, which I can't wait to produce that. It could potentially be the most enriching thing for the soul I've ever done. That was meant to be next, but then the bench has dropped. Anyway, the bench was like, "Oi, mate, you know that thing you were going to do?" "No, mate, no, I'm here." That's literally what happened. So now the train has been moved, so that might be filmed early next year.
Okay, perfect. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Go
mate.
and watch The Bench. Available on YouTube, on your YouTube channel, CK Goldiing.
On my YouTube channel, CK Goldiing,
Yes.
with 2 eyes, good shoes. Just I want to get it on camera.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, cheers, CK.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.